special guest, Major General Yair Golan. And let's welcome you into the studio with us. Welcome, Yair.
Good evening.
Good
Well,
evening.
good
Good to
evening
have
in
you with
Israel.
us.
Good noon.
Yeah,
or
tough
or
times,
morning, I don't know.
very difficult times. So let's try to get all of us into one screen here. Can we do that?
Good.
There we are.
Good job.
Okay.
Hello.
So Yair was among other things, he was the former assistant to the chief of staff of the IDF, and he was also a member of Knesset. But before that, he actually held a position as the leading officer in the West Bank. Yair, could you tell us a little about what your position was to explain to people how you've got a pretty good idea of what's going on and what was going on throughout the years? And then let's talk about that first. Please introduce yourself a little more in depth.
All right. During the years 2005, 2007, including the period of the disengagement, the implementation of the disengagement plan, I commanded the Judean Samaria for more than 2 years. That was a time of terrible terror attacks imposed by the Palestinians. And at the same time, I got a lot of experience confronting Jews, settlers who live in the Judean Samaria, unfortunately. I can tell you that what we see right now is a deterioration, a terrible deterioration in the willingness to obey the law. And what we see in Judean Samaria 2 days ago, it's a kind of a chaos. And this is totally unacceptable. This is a terrible danger to our ability to live with each other. It's a terrible sign for the future because in this case, hundreds of people managed to penetrate the village of Hawara and cause a terrible destruction. It was a kind of a Jewish pogrom, and I don't have to say much. According to our history and our culture, what is for us to see such an event, Jews impose a pogrom on Arabs.
We might want to
This is
mention that this is not the first time that there has been Jewish violence and Jewish terror, but those have usually been
not
what were referred to
not
as price tag attacks. This is a full-fledged pogrom.
yeah. This is but I don't remember any event like this that included so many participants, and this is a terrible sign for the future. And the meaning of that it's truly crucial in Israel to strengthen democracy and to strengthen the rule of law. There is no other way. And we are in a very sensitive period, and we need to do something drastic in order to regain this
So,
sense of democracy and this sense of the rule of law. And it's hard to imagine such a process heading by the current government. And therefore, if you're asking me, we are heading some sort of a non-violent civil revolt. In fact, I'm one of the persons who truly encourage such a civil revolt, because in case where the government itself attack the civilians and attack the freedom of civilians and attack the rule of law for civilians, that's totally unacceptable, and
Yair,
therefore we need to fight.
I'd like
Yeah,
to stop you here and just let people overseas know, because not people overseas probably don't know, but ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at the one individual who, when he was still in uniform as the assistant chief of staff of the IDF, he spoke to a Holocaust memorial ceremony in 2016, and he warned that we might be coming to this day. He was the only person who had the guts to say it, and not only person, he was serving in the IDF. The country was appalled. They grilled him. They said, "How dare you make any kind of comparisons to Holocaust or Germany or whatever?" There was no reference to Holocaust. It was about the beginnings of fascism, and nobody understood him then. Well, I think everybody understands now what you were talking about. And I'd just like to ask if you can give us an idea of, you've mentioned civil revolt, and on the other hand, what you would expect to see from that kind of revolt of ours, and also where you see the country going. How do you see this playing out?
Americans call it civil disobedience.
Correct.
Well, there are three methods of civil disobedience. The first is to disobey, not following the rules, and do everything in order not to cooperate with the government. Everyone can do something in order to express his unwillingness to cooperate with the government. The second method are strikes, and we need to have as much as possible strikes all over the Israeli markets and economy in order to explain the government that you cannot move forward without us. The Israeli economy cannot move forward without us. And the third method is demonstrations, and we need to demonstrate every day from sunrise to sunset,
Yair,
over and over and over again.
Yeah, Yair,
Yes.
I wanted
Yes,
to ask you. There's a movement in Israel, and it's undeniable that there are many people in the reserves now who are saying, "I'm not going to serve under a fascist
government. Yeah.
fascist government." You being a soldier most of your life with this incredible amount of experience, how do you see that?
I see it as a very positive measure. Yes, I encourage them because I think that without some drastic measures, this terrible government won't be able to understand the outrage of the people. And this is a very clear-cut sign that the most devoted citizens of Israel, those who serve as reserves, and this is a terrible, well, it's tough to be in the reserve corps, and I think that this is a clear sign that we are not willing to cooperate with a government which take us to some sort of fascism. Ladies, gentlemen,
Where
now?
where are we going? Where's this going to lead to? We're sitting here and we're kind of like trying to, and it's kind of like the difference between optimists and pessimists. So I wanted to ask you, let's say if we go forward in a year from now or 2 years from now, where do you see this going?
Well, first we have in the next 6 weeks.
Well, we should be a bit modest. I have no ability to predict the future, for a year or two. Let's say that I can make my predictions for the next 3-4 weeks. And where are we heading? I think that if we will be able to be decisive enough, this government will take back the proposals to fixing the law, and they will negotiate with us. This is the most desirable outcome of this process. What we want is, talking without moving further with the judicial procedure.
So what you and Rob were talking about.
So also freezing the judicial procedure. This is the, I would say, the basic outcome which is needed in order to move forward in any positive direction.
But we should make it clear.
I'm optimistic. I'm
Good.
optimistic concerning that, because I think that Netanyahu, with all his willingness to get rid out of his judicial problems, he truly understands that without some sort of cooperation with from the civilians and from the opposition parties, he won't be able to move forward with his initiative, because we are so we
have a majority of the Israeli public understanding and even supporting us.
No doubt, we have the majority, and I think I seen the demonstrations in the that more
in Tel Aviv
and
and at the Knesset,
more and more people who identify themselves as Zionist religious or as members of the Likud party, show themselves in the streets.
I'd like to make two things clear.
This is fantastic, and this is fantastic.
Yeah, I'd like to make two things clear that possibly our viewers aren't aware of. Number one, in the Israeli governmental system, as opposed to the United States having three branches, you have the legislative, you have the judiciary, and you have the executive. Well, in Israel, our executive and our legislative are one branch. So we only have one other branch as the check to keep the whole thing in balance, and that's the judiciary. And what they're doing now is eliminating the judiciary. In essence, we're talking about an autocracy. That's why it's so important. This isn't just something which is happening on the side, like in the United States, where there's a battle between the Supreme Court being too right-wing or left-wing. This is getting rid of the last check in the balances. The other thing I wanted to make sure you can talk about, and you and Ron were speaking about this a minute ago, the people who are supporting us are lists of hundreds of combatant officers, pilots, members of the security systems and the security apparatus of the country.
The highest echelons.
Why do you think that's happening? And can you give us maybe a couple more examples?
Well, I would like to explain also why it's happening. What is the interest of Benjamin Netanyahu? It's 100% clear. He wants to get rid out of his judicial problems. But he got a total support from the ultra-Orthodox. Why? Because they want to expand their autonomy. They want to get more and more money in order to close the high fences around their society. You cannot do it without lessening the power of the Supreme Court, because this is a true sign of inequality concerning the rule of law. And the third and the most decisive force behind this judicial initiative, the judicial revolution, are the extreme religious Zionist parties. I don't consider themselves as Zionists, but that's the way they call themselves. And I would say that in this case, they need to lessen or to demolish the Supreme Court in order to do whatever they want in Judean Samaria. This is the issue. And this is the true engine behind this negative process. And we need to understand that. For decades, they have no respect to the rule of law. For decades, I, have a lot of experience with them. They look at democracy as a kind of a mechanism, and they don't provide democracy, any aspect of values. For them, it's just a mechanism to gain power. As long as this mechanism works, fantastic. The minute this mechanism work against them, they want to demolish him.
Before we finish, I should let other people, the people around the world know who aren't familiar, you were a member of Knesset in the previous Knesset for the Meretz party. And unfortunately, the Meretz, excuse me?
For 3 consecutive Knesset.
Correct. But also in the very last, as in final Meretz party in the Knesset, because we have fallen out of the Knesset. We are not an official party anymore. This kind of leaves the left crippled. We are lacking in representation and lacking in getting our vision of how we want to come out of all of this. What is our alternative to the situation today and to the situation that's been existing since the beginning of occupation and everything else? Can you, in a very short way, just tell us, are you going to be part of being able to reassemble the left and make progress?
Well, I think it's absolutely crucial to rebuild the Zionist left in Israel. I insist to call it the Zionist left. We cannot give up Zionism. We are the true patriots of Israel. And therefore, we need to have this patriotic flag in our right hand and the equality and democracy on the left hand.
Let me cool some of our viewers down, because when you said Zionist, a bunch of them had what we call a knee-jerk reaction, said, oh, Zionists. No. I don't want to have it. When you say Zionism, I know what you're talking about. We should let them know that our Zionism has nothing to do with occupation. It has nothing to do with theocracy. It has nothing to do with a dictatorship. Our Zionism is something, there are many flavors of Zionism.
In fact, we hold the true meaning and the fundamental meaning of Zionism. You can read Theodor Herzl, Alt Neuland, he depicts in his book, this small book, the vision of Zionism for Israel. And I can assure you, this vision is about this utopia, is about a free, democratic, liberal state that treats its minorities in the most respectful manner, a state that works, hard in order to be a true partner in the region, and at the same time knows how to defend itself against certain enemies.
Excellent.
And I think what I try to bring to the Zionist left tomorrow morning is a kind of practical approach. We don't need any more, nice slogans. We need to be
real action and organization.
We need to be practical, and we are going together, me and Moshe, to establish a new movement, a leftist Zionist movement, in order to rebuild and in order to recover the Zionist left.
So I suggest that we first, at this point, thank you very much for your time. You're one of Israel's most busiest people, and everybody wants to hear from you. And I'm sure we'll go into more depth later on. We'll have you back as a guest in the future. So thank you very, very much, and have a good evening. And we're going to continue here and finish our broadcast.
Thank you, Yair. Thank you.